الذين آمنوا وتطمئن قلوبهم بذكر الله ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you? So today we are doing part number 8, and what's the theme?
The power of prayer, power of meditation, and focusing on positive things.
So the power of prayer, the power of meditation, and focusing on positive things, right? And how do these three things actually lead to
happiness?
Happiness, and before happiness?
Tranquility.
Tranquility. So how do these three things lead to happiness and tranquility? And I'm going to give you 3 examples of the life of an atheist, the life of a secular person, and then the life of those who truly believe in the Creator and divine guidance. So I'll begin with the atheists so that we are clear about what atheists are. So when it comes to atheists, or if someone says atheism, what comes to mind?
People who don't believe in God.
Atheists. So, like they don't believe in any God, so no God. Then
they have no belief.
No belief.
And they have no faith.
And no faith. So this is a general concept. The moment we talk about atheism, this is what comes to mind. But in fact, there was a study conducted by Pew Research Center, and that study shows that atheists actually believe in a range of beliefs, in a range of different things. The title of the study was None on the Rise, like those who believe in nothing, that's on the rise. But the same study actually concludes with statistics that atheists believe in a range of different things. For instance, 18% of the atheists believe that religion has been important or played an important role in their life, right? So that's religion. So 26% believe that they are spiritual. And this is very interesting, right? So you don't believe in anything and you're spiritual, right? So you're believing in something, right? 14% of them believe in universal spirit, right? So believing in a universal spirit, believing in something that you don't see, right? Believing in unseen, right? And then, interestingly, 12% believe in prayers. So they responded that they do pray. Together, all these make up to 70%. It means that 70% of the atheists believe in one thing or another. So if you don't believe in one true God, you're still believing in something. You create your own God. You create your own beliefs and your own isms and your own philosophies, but you have to have something as per our intrinsic nature to believe, right? So that's how the story of the atheists go. So I'm going to share with you 3 different stories. One from the life of an atheist, and then see that how did they suffer and what conclusion they came to when they were in search of peace and tranquility, right? So the first one is this guy. His name is Siegfried Gold, Sigfried, Siegfried Gold. So the second story is a person. His name is Michael Mosley. And the third one is a story of 2 families from what a producer of the Scottish documentary called The World's Largest Open-Air Prison. So Siegfried Gold is 45 years old. He is a software engineer. He has a family. He has 2 children, and he has all the facilities in life. And the story was published by Washington Post, and the author was Michelle Boostin. So the story was published on June 23rd, 2013. So this individual, Siegfried Gold, had absolutely no problem, but he had one problem, and that was that he was 110 pounds overweight, and just that thing ate him from inside, and he wanted to lose his weight. One. Number two, just because he couldn't lose his weight, he lost his self-confidence and self-esteem, and because of that, all his relationships were getting affected, right? So he was drifting apart from his family too. So he was in search of a solution. So that's his story. So before I discuss his solution, let's discuss Michael. Michael is about 60 years old. He works with the BBC since 1985. And he has all the facilities in life that one can have. Absolutely no problem at all, except that he's thinking about the future. He is so worried about the future, like thinking about things that might never happen to him, right? That he would lose all the money, all his children would end up in jail and things like this. So all those negative thoughts would keep him awake. And the problem that he was facing was that he was chronic insomniac for 20 years, right? So he couldn't properly sleep. So that's the story of Michael Mosley. And then the story of these two families. So this person, his name is Muhammad, and this lady that you're seeing in this picture, her name is Khalida. And they lost 7 children in a bombing raid, 3 of their own, all under 7. And he also lost his leg in that bombing raid. So anyone who goes through that type of a tragedy and that type of atrocity, he would definitely, when he witnessed that kind of a carnage, they would definitely face post-traumatic stress disorder, right? And then they are living in an area, the world's largest open-air prison, where there's no running water, no basic facilities, no mental health support, right? No psychiatrist, no therapist or whatever, right? Same is the story of this individual. His name is Talal, right? And he lost his brother and 10 of his family members, so 11 in total, women and children and his brother. So he also faced the same situation, right? So definitely, if you witness that type of a carnage of your own family members, it's definitely going to affect you mentally, and you'll require some kind of a support mechanism to help you to get back on track. So these are the 3 stories. Now they need mental health support, of course. He needs some mental health support, and this guy needed some support as well. So the solution that Siegfried Gold came up with after lots of research, that he had to join a food program, right? But the precondition for that program was that he had to, one, believe in a God, and number 2, he had to pray a few times a day, right? So those are the preconditions. So what he did was that since he was an atheist, he created his own God, right? So a goddess, and he put that goddess in his bedroom, and he'll pray to that goddess, put his forehead on the floor, he'll bow down to his goddess and then ask. And then he would pray before and after meal and all those kinds of stuff. So that was his practice. And he did that for 4 years. So before I discuss the results, I'll just go to Michael Mosley. Michael had the resources, he had the support of his organization, and they were trying to produce a documentary at the same time as well. So he was a best role model for that. So what they did was they went on a research trip. So first they went to Yale University, right, to meet Professor Becca Levy. And Professor Becca Levy had done some research. She had done a longitudinal study for 35 years in Oxford, Ohio. And the study was on the power of optimism, that how our thinking and our mind actually affects our bodies. So she had done that research. Michael went there. He met Professor Becca Levy to get some information to understand his issues. Then Michael went to Essex University. And there he met Professor Elaine Fox. And what Elaine Fox has done, she has been doing research at the Brain Center at Essex University, Brain Research Center. So she has discovered that our brains, the two frontal lobes of our brains, react to the kind of information that we focus on. So the right frontal lobe gets activated when you focus on negative things, right? And the left side of our brain gets activated when you focus on positive things, right? So they did some tests on Michael Mosley. And what they found out was that he was constantly, habitually, consistently focusing on negative things, negative information. And as a result of that, the right side of his frontal lobe was getting very activated. And the left side of his brain was relatively calm. Then he went to Boston, Massachusetts, right? And there he met Professor Rose Beckard. So there he met Professor Rose Beckard, and what Professor Rose Beckard has done is that she has developed a wristband or a machine. It measures the intensity of your emotions. So you put that emotional microscope on your wrist, and what happens is that it measures the levels of your emotions. So you're in a gathering, right? So you might be thinking that you're perfectly normal in your interaction with other individuals, but you might not, right? And that microscope actually measures the ups and downs in your emotions. That machine also detected that Michael had anxiety. So although he would be considering himself perfectly normal in a social gathering, but he would not be in a normal state of mind. So based on that, they prescribed two things for Michael. One, CBM. What is that?
Cognitive biased modification.
Cognitive biased modification. And what is cognitive biased modification is that, let me finish the other one. And the other one was secular meditation, right? Cognitive bias modification is that you have to constantly focus on positive things, right? And that's an exercise that you do. Because of that, the left side of your brain gets activated, and then you start behaving normally as well. For Michael, it was prescribed that he does CBM 5 to 10 minutes a day, and then secular meditation 5 to 10 minutes a day. He used to look into a screen for 5 to 10 minutes with hundreds of different faces with different emotions, and he had to pick the ones with smiles. So he had to pick smiley faces out of the hundreds of faces with different emotions. And just that was good enough, was supposed to be good enough to change the chemistry of his mind. And then he had to focus on the secular meditation to give him some peace and contentment, right? So he went through that exercise. Before we discuss the results, for these two families, there was absolutely nothing, as we discussed, right? There is 42% unemployment rate in that area, no basic facilities. Like 1 out of 2 people don't have enough food to eat, right? So they were in those kinds of circumstances. They lost, compared to their problems, 110 pounds overweight and imaginary fears of the future. Like compared to these problems, their problems were severe. Like they don't have a roof on their head. They don't have a place, they don't have a shelter where they could sleep at night, right? One. Number two, they were in those circumstances, they lost 7 and 11 family members. So imagine their state of mind, imagine the extent of trauma in their case. So now they're going through their tragedy, and there is no research center, there's no brain center, there's no Elaine Fox, no Rose Beckard, no machines to measure their emotional stress. But despite that, they coped with their situation, trusting in what? Trusting in their
creator.
Trusting in their creator, and as a result, their faith, right? That's by default. So that's all that they had to resort to whom? To resort to their creator and ask for help from him. So that's the only thing that they had. So let's compare the results now. So this guy, Siegfried Gold, bowed down to, prostrated to, and asked his own creation, his creator, the self-made creator, for 4 years. And as a result of that, he was perfectly fine. he lost his weight. The nutrition program became effective for him just because of the peace of mind that he was receiving from what he called the power of, the power of what?
Prayer.
The power of asking. Asking, right? So when you pray, you ask, right? So you're right, but so he declared that as the power of asking. And as a result of that, his life was transformed. He had a perfectly normal relationship with his wife and the rest of the community, right? But it took him 4 years. In this case, what happened was, in the case of Michael Mosley, in just 7 weeks, he described that he could have a sound sleep at night, and he had perfectly normal, balanced emotions and reactions, and his wife testified to that as well. But just to confirm that, he went back to all those places. He went to Elaine Fox, and they did those tests again, and what they noticed was that there was substantial chemical difference in his brain, right? So the left-hand side of his brain was now well and more activated compared to the right side, and the activity on the right side of his brain, the frontal lobe, had decreased substantially, right? And that was the result of what? Focusing on positive things or positive information, but in this case, for fact, smiley faces, 5 to 10 minutes a day, and that secular meditation where you don't think about Buddha or a creator, only you concentrate on your breath, and that's it. So that was the only thing. So that was providing him a bit of disconnection from his thoughts and other problems that he used to think about in life, right? For these folks, the evidence of their rehabilitation, I would say, lies in their own words. So when the Scottish producer met them and they told him their story, right? So within their story, both of them at different times said exactly the same thing. And although the producer has translated every single thing from Arabic to English, but what he actually missed and what caught my attention was the words that they used the moment they described their horrible situation in which they were in. They said, so whenever you thank Allah for something, as a Muslim, you say Alhamdulillah. So they described their problem, and right away they said Alhamdulillah. Talal said exactly the same thing. He described the situation in which he was in, and then he said Alhamdulillah, not only Alhamdulillah, but he also added, so I'm okay with their decision. So if I lose my 11 family members, that's perfectly fine. This was from Allah, right? So, and that shows the level of their contentment. They were perfectly fine. Despite all that they went through, they didn't suffer like these individuals for years. Look at this one. 20 years, insomniac for 20 years, just because of thinking about things which didn't even happen, right? Just imaginary things. This one was only 110 pounds overweight, and he lost all his self-esteem and confidence because of that, and his relationships were suffering as a result, his work was suffering as a result, right? But compare those problems, here we don't even have any issue, right? Compare that to the horrible situation in which these folks were in, but just faith and true belief helped them out, right? And they were living mentally, psychologically, they were living a perfectly normal life. They didn't get suicidal. They didn't go to any extreme, right? They didn't do anything out of norm. They lived a perfectly normal life. So this shows us, on the one hand, the power of asking. So if you rely on your own self, right? So you would be saying that I ought to be contented. But if you're relying on Creator, then you would say that grant me contentment, right? So there's a huge difference between saying that I'm in control and I'll change my mind, I ought to find serenity, and then this one, which is asking that grant me serenity, right? So there's that huge difference. But then I would quickly wrap it up. Let's see what's our conclusion. So what did Siegfried Gold discover?
Power of asking.
The power of asking, and belief, right? So he had to believe in something, right? Although he created his own God, but he had to believe in something and someone so that he could ask, right? So he discovered the power of asking. In case of Michael, what did he discover?
Power of meditation.
Meditation and?
Focusing on positives.
What was that called?
CBM.
CBM, focusing on positives. And then 3, the two families, right? So there was the power of?
Faith.
Yeah, P-O-W-E-R, power of true faith. I would say true faith. All right, so the interesting thing is that when you go and you truly do research, right? So Michael stopped at secular meditation. So for him, that was the end of the world, right? So all that you need to do is just remove the God, think about your breath, get that distraction. So there was the end of the world for him. Or the second one was focusing on positive things, right? So to train his mind, all that he was doing was focusing on those smiley faces for 5 to 10 minutes. There was the end of the world for him in his search for tranquility and peace, right? For Siegfried Gold, his world came to an end when he created his own God, right? And started praying to his own creation. Compare that to the two families for whom there was an inbuilt mechanism in their psyche, in their physical chemistry and everything, right? So that they could cope with that type of a horrible situation and trauma in their life. So let's compare. What's the difference? What made these folks unique, right? What made these folks unique is Islam. And what is Islam? Is it a religion or what is it?
It's a way of life.
Islam is not, it's not an ism or something. So Islam is not, so this is what people confuse. Islam is not a religion. It's not an ism or philosophy or something, right? It's not, right? So let me use my colors, right? So it's not these things. It's not a religion. It's not an ism. Islam is what? What did you say?
A way of life.
It's a way of life. All right. So if it's a way of life, as a Muslim, what do you do every single day? What's the most important thing that you just can't miss as a Muslim, and about which you'll be asked the first question when you're resurrected, as per Islamic beliefs? When you're resurrected on the Day of Judgment, what would be the first question? What's the most important thing in your daily life?
The 5 daily prayers.
It's 5 mandatory, right? Mandatory prayers. I'm going to describe a way of life for Muslims. But it's not just a belief, right? It's way more than that. You have to practice a few things to fulfill how you live that way of life, right? So if you're praying 5 times a day, let's first discuss these 5 prayers. So those 5 prayers give you an opportunity to do what? So when you pray, what happens?
You're meditating. So
you are meditating. But before you start meditation, what actually happens that distracts you from the worldly things and thoughts and helps you focus on meditation? That's the connection, right? So you establish your connection. So prayer, these 5 mandatory prayers, is actually a conversation with your God, right? With your Creator. So all that you do is you just disconnect yourself, you connect to your Creator, and that provides you an opportunity to meditate. It's not just disconnection or distraction from what's happening around you or in your mind, but it also is an opportunity to to ask. Right? And to thank. Right? So that gratitude, there has been extensive research done that for contentment and peace of mind, all that you do is to be thankful, to be grateful for all the blessings that have been bestowed on you, right? So the prayer provides you an opportunity to be grateful to your God, to ask and to get connected and get distracted. And the most important thing is that you put your forehead on the ground. So that's your humility, right? So you are asking, but at the same time, that's an opportunity for you to be humble, not to be arrogant, and then you ask for support. So you're saying, you're admitting that I'm not in control. Someone else is in control. One. Number two, if you're getting bullied at school, or if you are working and the work environment is oppressive, or if you are being oppressed, or you are going through those kinds of circumstances, then what happens is that he's the creator, right? He has all the power. So when you're in his presence, you forget about all those things, right? So you bow down and you say that you are the most gracious and the most merciful, and you ask for help and support. So that ask becomes way more effective than the ask that Siegfried Gold was experiencing, right? And this meditation becomes many, many times more effective compared to the meditation that Michael Mosley was experiencing. And then, most important, and the belief, the fake belief in a fake God, right? This is true belief in a true God who has given you all the things that you have. But the important thing is that focusing on the positive, that was the second solution for Michael. So when you say that Islam is a way of life, all that you need to do is constantly, the moment you wake up, from that moment until you go to your bed, throughout the day, you are constantly focusing on what is positive, what should I do and what should I not do, right? What are negatives, what should I ignore and reject, and what should I accept and do? Similarly, the power of asking, like every single moment as a Muslim, you are constantly asking. There are du'as. Du'a means asking, right? It's not just prayer. So you open up your eyes early in the morning and there's a prayer or dua right at that time. You go to the washroom, there's a dua over there. You change your clothes, there is a dua, a prayer, asking Allah for help and support there. Come down to the breakfast table, you begin with a prayer, with a dua, right? And then even for little things, like if you're taking milk, right? Most people don't know. But then there is a dua for that. Do you remember that?
Allahumma barik lana fihi wa zidna minhu.
That's very good. And then when you go out of your door to school or to work, there's a dua there. Do you remember that?
Allahumma inni as'aluka khair al-makhraji
wa khair al-mawlaji, right? So, and then you sit in your car and there is a dua. So every single moment you are connected. Every single moment you are asking, and every single moment you are focusing on positive things. Right? So imagine so he was doing this, Michael was doing his meditation and focusing on positive things just 10 to 20 minutes a day. And then scientific tests proved that the chemistry of his mind was changed. So imagine 10 minutes focusing on just the smiley faces, and the whole day or throughout your life, you're focusing on positive things, concrete positive things, not just smiley faces. So imagine the impact of this way of life on your personality, on your thinking, on your thought process, on the chemistry of your brain, and even attitude or behavior of your genes. So genes, we thought, were fixed, but genes are not fixed. This hospital in UK, in London, St. Thomas Hospital, they've done some research on identical twins. And what they have found out that one twin with a similar genes would be chronically depressed, while the other one would be perfectly fine, right? The reason for that they found out was the circumstances, the events, and the way we think, that those things change the nature and the way those genes behave, right? So those genes are not constant. So imagine if you're living a way of life like this, on your personality, on your genes, on your brain, on everything that you do. So this guarantees that, one, you would never get
sad.
You never get sad or depressed or anxious, right? One. And then if you don't get depressed, if you don't get sad, if you don't go to the extremes, you won't do things which are out of norm. You would live a perfectly normal life. But the precondition is that you have to have true belief and you practice this way of life. Like for instance, although Islam is a way of life, but then the question is that should we believe that all those more than 2 billion people in the world who claim to be following this way of life are perfectly contented, their brains are perfectly balanced, or their genes are perfectly behaving in a way to safeguard them from sliding into depression and anxiety and extremism, or not? Why is it not the case?
Because you have to pray properly, or like
so it begins here, right? So what do you have to do?
So you have to get a stronger faith.
You have to strongly believe, one, and then what do you have to do? So when you pray 5 times, you have to pray 5 times a day and then follow all those things, right? So if you
pray slowly so you can meditate.
pray, not 100 miles per hour like you. All right. So not like if you practice the way it's supposed to be practicing, if you pray the way it's meant to be prayed, then you'll definitely have connection and you'll be able to meditate and you'll be able to ask and think and be humble, right? But if you don't pray the prayers the way it's supposed to be prayed, then you won't get the benefit. And the proof lies here. In Ardwa, Muslims are what ratio of the population?
100,000 out of 1 million.
So it's about 10%, right? So Muslims are 10% of the population. But in jails, the Muslim population is how much? Do you have a clue?
30%.
It's 30%, right? So in jails, 30% of the inmates are Muslims, right? Similarly, total number of homicides in Ardwa last year were 24, and out of those 24, 10 were Muslims. So almost 50% or a little less than 50% are Muslims. So does it mean that all of them are perfectly normal? No, because they don't truly follow the way of Islam. So if you're looking at it's not that those who are sliding into the extremes are because of following this way of life, but they are sliding to the extreme because of not following this way of life the way it's supposed to be practiced and lived. So if you're truly following this way of life the way it's supposed to be followed, then you won't have any
anxiety, fear, sadness,
depression, and you won't do anything that's negative, right? That would affect you negatively or your family negatively or the community negatively. Everything will be perfectly fine. The bottom line is that we have been discussing this in the context of happiness, right? To have happiness, one, you have to have true belief, and then be humble, and then practice, right? Be positive in the things that you do in life, and you'll have the desired results. So you won't be insomniac for 20 years or searching for peace like Siegfried Gold and Michael Mosley. You'll be fully contented like these two families, right? All right, so we'll wrap it up in the next part, and that's it for today. Thank you so much. Alaikum assalam.
والله